month, both in person and over Zoom. And if you want to join us in person, we have gatherings at all of our main branches. So Quakertown, Yardley, Bensalem, Percy, Levittown, and Langhorne. And the main live meeting is in the Doylestown branch, where we are broadcasting from. These sessions are also being recorded, and after each talk, the videos are on the BCFL YouTube channel. And you can find a link on our website, buckslib.org. Then click on the events tab and then recorded tech talks. Just be aware that it can take a little while to get to get the video uploaded to the YouTube channel, sometimes up to a week. For today's meeting, we're using the Zoom chat feature. So if you have questions for the second half of today's talk, you can add your questions directly to the Zoom chat, or as in the past, you can email techtalks@buckslib.org. Do us a favor and keep all Zoom chat relevant to the topic so that our staff can find your questions more easily. And also please treat others with respect, or you may be removed from today's meeting. Check the top post in Zoom chat for more information. Our meeting subjects, as we said earlier, are chosen by you. We send out a quarterly survey by email, and the top 3 choices from among those topics that we poll you about are chosen for the next round of talks. We create a talk around the piece of technology, and then registration through Zoom lets you ask specific questions around that topic for us to be able to address. And today's topic is online privacy. We opened this up, as I said, to your questions as you registered. So as we go, I'm going to speak to some more general topics and then dip into a few specific questions. And at the end, I'll handle all of the questions that we received by email. We'll take a break to rest my voice. As you can hear, I may or may not be a little sick. And then we'll come back and address any questions that we received during the first half of today's talk. All right, so online privacy. We're gonna stay at a pretty general overview to begin with, like I said, and we're going to talk about what you can do to stay safe online, what you can do to stay private online. We've talked about this before in many of our tech talks. One of the first things you want to do to keep your information private, to be as private as possible online, is to follow all the best practices for keeping your device safe online, which is update your software regularly. Make sure your Windows software and any software you use often is regularly updated, like your web browser. You can back up your necessary files to things like flash drives or an external hard drive that doesn't connect to the internet, because when it doesn't connect to the internet, it is inherently much safer. And then also, and we'll look at this a little more later with specific examples, but learn to identify your legitimate error message or warning messages on your computer versus the messages that you're going to see pop up here and there that are trying to scam you into something. Like I said, we'll deal with that a little more later. We'll come back to it, but it's a good idea to just have that in your back pocket to know. All right, so best practices as we go through are also make sure you're using two-factor authentication on your online accounts. We talk about using safe passwords all the time. Make sure they're unique for each service. Make sure they're at least a little complex and long so that people can't guess them. But the most important thing is using two-factor authentication, because when you get that text message, it's the second key that online service is using to know that you are who you say you are. They send you a text message. You are ideally the only person who has access to that phone number. You get the code, you type it in, you are who you say you are. So make sure you're using two-factor authentication on as many services as you can. It's a little annoying, I get it, to have to get those text messages, type in those codes all the time, but it is inherently much safer. Make sure also when you're using services online that you are looking for the little lock in your browser, and you'll see it in almost all major modern browsers that indicate that you have a secure layer lock or a secure layer connection to the website. This means that your data is encrypted. you can read the information. The website you're communicating with can read the information. Anybody in between should be reading gibberish. And then also you can use a VPN or virtual private network to further encrypt your communication. We did talk about this in several previous tech talks, specifically the one prior to this one. So you can go to our YouTube channel and take a look at those recordings and get some more information. But a VPN adds a second layer of encryption. In this case, anybody who's looking at your traffic between you and the service that you're trying to talk to won't be able to see where your traffic is going to. They're only going to see that it's going to that VPN computer on the other end. They have no idea if you're going to Facebook or your bank's website or that sort of thing. So, like I said, to get more information about it, please visit our YouTube channel. And then lastly, to make sure that you are operating as privately as possible on your computer, you can check to make sure that you have all of your browser settings set to be as private as possible. I'm going to show you what that looks like in Microsoft Edge. It looks pretty similar in all the major browsers. They will all have a settings menu that you can go into. And then from there, you'll see something that says like security and privacy, or in this case, privacy, search, and services. And if you click on that menu, they're going to explain a whole bunch about what kind of tracking is done on you online. Trackers online are things, and we're going to talk about this in just a little bit, but that advertisers and other services use to try to figure out who you are and build a profile of who their visitors are so that they can better serve you advertisements or sometimes slightly more nefarious things. So in the case of Microsoft Edge, you can choose to set your tracking prevention on a much stricter basis, so that it will almost certainly have the lowest of personalization. You can also, in this case, or in the case of all the major modern web browsers like Edge or Google Chrome or Mozilla Firefox, you can ask the browser to send do not track requests. Now you see here that we get this, this little warning box that pops up that says, you know, we can turn this on and we can send all the requests we want, and it'll depend on the site that we're sending it to honor that request. I am of the opinion that better safe than sorry. I'm going to turn this on no matter what. So I'm going to click send the request and then go from there. The other thing you want to do is look at all of these options. I won't go over every single one of them today, but kind of makes me feel a little icky to know that sites can check to see if I have payment methods saved in my browser. So I'm going to turn that off. And in the case of some of this stuff, we can turn off, it looks like we can't here, but we could turn off sending optional diagnostic data to Microsoft so that we don't get Microsoft building a profile of us based on what kind of diagnostic data we send them. All right, so when you check these privacy settings in your browser, you are doing, the bare minimum to make sure you're not being tracked. You can also do things like download extensions into your browser, which are little pieces of software that add some functions to your browser. This will actually lead me to our first patron question, which we received ahead of time. And the question is, do you or any of your associates know anything about the DuckDuckGo browser? And the answer is yes. So we're going to talk about it for a little bit. DuckDuckGo, and you may have seen advertisements for it on the web or commercials on TV here and there. DuckDuckGo started as a search engine alternative to the big names like Google that use tracking to provide more targeted ads to their users. Companies like Google make money by selling advertising space on their search pages to companies that are trying to advertise their products to you and me, the users of the service. And Google builds profiles of who you and I are to better fine tune their ad results to be able to charge more money to those companies that are looking for advertising space. Google collects things like when you go and visit their website. And this is weird because you don't think about some of this stuff being available when you go to visit Google. But when you visit Google and you type in a search into their box, or frankly, when you visit almost any website, you are sending information to that website server that includes things like the device information. When I go to a website, when I go to Google and search for something, Google knows that I am using a laptop that is using the Windows operating system. They can tell what browser I'm using. They can often tell what screen resolution I have my screen set to. They'll often be able to read what kind of fonts I have installed on my computer. This all sounds sort of not very big deal on the surface until you combine it with other things like if you have location services turned on your device, like your phone or your iPad, or sometimes even on your PC, that location information is being broadcast to Google when you go and visit their website, or they're looking at the IP address that you are browsing the web from. That IP address also gives them an idea of your geographic location. Google can also read some information off of the local storage on your computer. So your browser stores a little bit of information in it, log files, cookies, which we're going to talk about in a second, that kind of thing. That gets compiled into your data profile. And then cookies are things that originally were meant to help us by remembering the sign-in information for our websites that we go to visit, so we didn't have to type in our email address and our password every time. But website creators, advertisers figured out that they could use it to track you across the web when you go to visit different websites. And so websites that you visit can also read what cookies are installed on your browser. And if you've visited a lot of websites, they know a lot about your browsing history and profile. They store a whole bunch more information about us. This is not all of it, but this is the big stuff. And all of that combined can start to build a pretty robust profile of who you are and get an idea of your education level or your type of work or where you are in the world or if you have a kid or if you are single or if you're married or any of that stuff, which sounds crazy, but they can build it out of these things. So DuckDuckGo rose as an alternative to this. They are like I said, a search engine that you can use to search the web without having that kind of profile built about you. They have a very strict privacy policy. But the question was specifically about the DuckDuckGo browser, which I'm going to demonstrate here for you in just a second. So they do, in fact, have their own web browser that you can use that provides very basic web browsing functionality and strips out a lot of the stuff that's built into the other web browsers. To download it, all you have to do is go to duckduckgo.com and you will find the download browser button there on their website. You can install it after you download the installer package and get browsing. They'll walk you through some steps here to get you set up with private search, with tracking protection, all that stuff. Please do take a look at it and make use of it. I find it pretty useful. I actually find it even more useful when I set it up on my phone or on my iPad. I think it's really built well for those kind of devices. All right. So hop back here for a second while I take a sip of water. All right, so that's the answer to the DuckDuckGo browser. Please try it out, make use of it, and see if if you feel safer, you feel a little less tracked online. DuckDuckGo also, if you don't feel like going through the hassle of setting up the extension or the browser on your computer, and you have a little bit of know-how, you can install the DuckDuckGo extension on Google Chrome, on Microsoft Edge, on Mozilla Firefox, and it adds some of the same functionality to your standard browser that you get when you use the DuckDuckGo browser. Okay, so we are talking about online privacy, and one of the first things we said is that no online activity is completely private. You think about that old saying, I think it's a Benjamin Franklin saying, three people can keep a secret if two of them are dead. And in this case, think about the secrets, think about secrets or think about privacy as the secrets in that equation. Your secrets are just the information that can be found out about you by what you do online. Any interaction you have online between your computer and somebody else's computer seems like it's just between a computer and a computer, but it's always in the end between you using your computer and somebody else setting up that computer or using that computer. So it's essentially between two people or between you and several people. And this leads us to a big discussion about the cloud. You hear a lot about the cloud and what it can do for you these days. And in fact, probably not as much nowadays as you did 5 years ago. But the cloud is something we all use nowadays, whether it's OneDrive or Google Drive or Dropbox. We use it to store our files, to sync them across devices. And it's pretty convenient. But the cloud has no inherent sense of privacy because the cloud is just someone else's computer. There is no cloud, it's just someone else's computer. Dropbox is a service set up with a whole bunch of servers at the other end, which are just computers that are storing your data. You don't have an expectation of privacy in the cloud because your files are being stored on someone else's computer, and that someone else has access to that computer. So anytime you're using an online service like this, you are trading the convenience of having your files always available to you for the inherent privacy of those files. If they're just stored on your computer, you know, only you or whoever has physical access to your computer has access to them. Whoever has access to Dropbox's servers has access to your files at that point. Another example of web services that trade convenience for privacy is the big one when we talk about it. It's social media. And I'm sure this isn't a surprise to anybody, but you think about Facebook and Instagram as convenient ways to like share your life with your friends and family, to follow companies or bands or, you know, the little bistro down the road and get updates about their menu. But even when you go through the tedious process of setting up your account to be more inherently private than the default settings, those companies still have access to the photos and the videos and the updates and all the stuff you've posted to those websites. And as I just said, you do have to fine tune the settings on your social media profiles to lock them down to be more private. They don't make it easy for the standard user. They hide it behind a lot of menus, and a lot of people end up using the default settings for those services, which means that by default, your photos, your videos, all of your updates are freely available on the open web for people to stumble across, for any recruiters to search for, any HR departments that you are being interviewed for a job to look through and see what kind of things you have available online. All of this is to say that you should be approaching the open web with a bit of cynicism and paranoia. And again, all online communication is computers talking to computers, and that is just people talking to people. And people talking to people, we know how that often winds up. People don't keep secrets unless they're dead. All right. You did hear me use the phrase open web just now, which leads us to our second question, and actually our third and our fourth and our fifth patron question. We got a lot of questions about the dark web and what it is and how to remove information from it. If you've been told that your information is out there on the dark web. So we're going to take a step back and we're going to talk about the dark web a little bit. And we're going to see if we can demystify a little bit. So I took this image from somewhere on the internet and I haven't credited it. Sorry, whoever made it. But when we talk about the open web, we are really talking about that very top layer of the glacier there, or the glacier there, the thing that floats above the surface of the water. The portion of the web that you and I interact with almost daily or daily, that is regularly available to us because it is reachable by search engines. That open web is where companies go to advertise to you, for you to go to find information, for you to be able to connect with people. And it is called the open web because it's open and free for you to access. There is a layer under that we call the deep web, which is not what we call indexed by those search engines. Search engines don't go crawling through the pages of the deep web. And so when you go to Google and you search for something, those web pages are not going to be in the search index. They often include things like subscription databases or lots of forums that just tell Google that they don't want to be indexed, that sort of thing. These are a lot of pay-for sites that you won't find available on the open web. The question very specifically asked about the dark web, though, which is that bottom 6% there. The dark web is the hidden part of the internet. It is a small subsection of the deep web that requires you to have special software or a very special configuration on your computer to even access that part of the internet. That software, you might have heard of the Tor browser before, Tor. You would use that to access the dark web. There are other ways of doing it. Tor is the most famous or infamous. All right, so the dark web exists for a couple of different reasons. There are some people in, say, restrictive government who are under restrictive governments around the world who use things like Tor as a method of communication because it's inherently safer and much less traceable than getting out on the open web. But you've heard about the dark web because it is also and probably mostly used for illegal activities, such as selling stolen information or selling dangerous items, things like drugs or guns or things of that nature. Most people don't go to the dark web. Almost everyone doesn't need to go to the dark web, and it's a lot safer to stick to the regular internet for everyday use. And you are going to find that our personal information that has been stolen from companies often goes to the dark web for sale. Some companies even have services that will alert you when they locate your identifying information, like a social security number or something like that, in what they call a data dump on the dark web. And I'm sorry to say that, unfortunately, getting that information off the dark web is nigh on impossible. It is like getting toothpaste back into the tube once you've squeezed it out. It does not go back in, and you are not going to have any luck trying to get it back in. And that is incredibly frustrating because it's not your fault that that information is on the dark web. The information gets stolen from companies that are over harvesting information from us, trying to build these advertising profiles about us in ways that they don't even need to know to do business with us. And we are at a severe disadvantage when we're competing with the folks who are stealing this information from those companies. Because I don't know about you, but I don't know how to, or even want to hack into a multinational company's databases to get that info. So what are you and I going to do to stop them? So we're going to go over a couple of safety tips here that will hopefully prevent anything from happening in case your data does get stolen. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is freezing your credit with all three credit agencies that exist. This is probably the number one most important thing, because the purpose of stealing your personally identifying information, your phone number and your address and your birth date and your social security number and any former addresses you have and all that stuff, is to build a profile of who you are so that they can get money out of it, which often involves opening credit cards or loans or that sort of thing that they will then default on and which go onto your credit record. This can't happen if your credit is frozen with those three credit agencies. Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax all have processes that are available on their websites for you to go through and to freeze your credit on them. I have done it. I've actually had my credit frozen for years now. And I recommend that you do it too, because when someone goes to open a credit card in your name with all that information that they've stolen and your credit is frozen, they can't do it because they can't even run a credit check on you without having your credit unfrozen. The company that they would be applying to, I mean. I will say that the only annoyance in having your credit frozen is that if you do end up having to apply for a loan, like I refinanced my mortgage a few years ago, and when I went to refinance my mortgage, I had to unfreeze my credit for a few weeks. It is the work of maybe 15 minutes of going to these websites and logging into your account, typing in the personal identifying number that you have with them, and getting your credit frozen. You can set it to unfreeze for a specific time period or indefinitely. I pretty much always do it for a specific time period because I know how forgetful I am, and I would forget to turn it back on and open myself up to somebody stealing my information again. That's the big one. If your information is floating around out there and your credit is frozen, you can at least breathe a little bit of a sigh of relief. I will say that there are for-profit companies out there that will tell you that they will safeguard your identity online. Some of them have better track records than others, and we don't make any recommendations on that here, but feel free to investigate them yourselves. The other thing you can do is follow all those best practices that we talked about at the beginning of the talk today. Do your best to make sure your passwords are safe, secure, unique, that you're using two-factor authentication in every web service that possibly offers it, because that often thwarts people that are trying to cram through into your accounts. And just generally be paranoid and suspicious of anything online. All right, so we're going to move on to answering some specific questions that we got through the channels before we started today's talk. Again, I repeat, if you have any questions that I have been talking about here, please feel free to drop them into the Zoom chat or email them to techtalks@buckslib.org. If you're in person, feel free to approach someone at your location here in Doylestown. We'll be coming around at break time to see if you have any questions, and we will answer them in the second half of today's talk. All right. And actually, I'm moving a little slowly here. I'm already at 2:30. So question number one here is, will there be any privacy for Windows 10 users after Microsoft stops supporting Windows 10? Are there any options for Windows 10 users whose computers won't run Windows 11 other than buying a new computer? This is part of the frustrating process of the tech upgrade cycle. Computers will sometimes tell you that they can't upgrade to the new Windows operating system. So yes, Windows 10 goes to end of life in October of 2024, right, guys? I think it's October of 2024, after which 25? Oh, 25. You're right. We're in 2024 right now. I'll get my dates right at some point. October of 2025. So less than a year. You won't get security updates after that point, but the privacy settings on Windows 10 won't change. So if you've already gone through the process of locking down your privacy settings on Windows 10 at that point, you don't have to worry about it. You just do have to worry about the fact that you're not getting any security updates after that, which is not ideal. You want to be getting the security patches from Microsoft for your operating system. And we do highly recommend that you update to Windows 11. Now, it is frustrating because a lot of computers that you have bought will tell you that you can't upgrade to Windows 11. And this is a technical setting on your computer that is telling your computer that. If you have tech-savvy friends, or maybe even you want to seek some professional IT help to see if they can help you get around this, there are often computers that do meet the minimum requirements that just need a couple tweaks to get it turned on to be able to update to Windows 11. So check with those people. All right. Oops, let me go back to my camera close up here. One question was, when you have a virus on your PC, will a pricey removal service like $150 from Best Buy do better than a free virus or malware app? It's not necessarily going to do better, no. It is easier if you're worried about it, or if you feel like you don't have the skills to implement the steps. We do have a couple of slides here that you can take a look at that we want to highlight how to tell the difference between a fake virus notification and an actual virus notification. So on your computer, for the operating system, you will often see notifications in the bottom right corner, like here on Windows 10, pop up that give you notifications. In this case, viruses found. Your computer is damaged by suspicious programs. To remove viruses, click here. Or, as an alternative, in this case, we see virus and threat protection. Unauthorized changes blocked. Controlled folder access blocked. See. All right, so we have two different virus notifications, one of which here is real and one of which is fake. I'm going to tell you that this first one is fake. And we know because you can see on the screen here that this notification is actually coming from Microsoft Edge, not from the operating system, and that the phrasing around this is just a little bit strange. Your computer is damaged by suspicious programs. That sounds a little off to me, and it probably should sound a little off to you. In this case, this is one of those notifications that you can safely ignore, and I'll show you how to turn off those notifications in a second. This is an actual real notification from your operating system that tells you that these unauthorized changes were blocked. In this case, your program Windows Defender, which is built into the operating system for Windows 10 and Windows 11, is keeping this specific program from making changes to this specific folder. It looks a little techy and jargony, and it is, which stinks a little bit, but in this case, it's not telling you that there's any action you have to take, just that it blocked these changes, and you should be aware that this file is probably not legit. You're also going to get a bunch of notifications online when you're browsing around that give you things like Windows Defender security warnings or deceptive site ahead. Again, one of these is legitimate and one of these is not. And I repeated my pattern, so you probably guessed already, but the first one is fake. In this case, they are really trying to get you to call that toll-free Windows support number because they're going to try to get your credit card out of you and charge you for at least a couple $100s, if not more. This Windows Defender security warning is using Microsoft's logo. They're using all kinds of tech jargon here to make it seem like this is legitimate. But if you think about it, there are millions and millions, if not billions and billions of Windows devices out there. There's no way for Windows support to offer a toll-free device for everyone who ever had a Windows Defender Security Center warning for those people to call and for them to respond to. They really are working hard here. This one is an actual example of a legitimate warning in Google Chrome. Google Chrome will sometimes detect dangerous activity while you're browsing and tell you what that dangerous activity looks like. In this case, it's trying to install software or reveal personal information, and they'll give you a button that says, go back to safety. That is also a common denominator in the legitimate warnings. You will find things like, take me back to safety, or, for for the virus programs, it will show you the things that it's done instead of open up a new website and ask you to log in to harvest your information. You can, in the case of websites like this, or in the case of that notification earlier, turn off notifications in your browsers. And I'm going to do it again inside Microsoft Edge. No, I'm going to do it in Chrome this time. Sorry, everybody. But you can turn off notifications like this inside of all the major modern browsers by going to Settings, going to Privacy and Security. Gonna hope I'm getting this right, everybody. Site Settings. And then Notifications. Now, I want to demonstrate what this actually looks like when you see it. So you're going to see this on a lot of websites. They're going to ask you to turn on notifications, and it's going to pop up on Google Chrome here. Sometimes it's going to pop up in the bottom right corner of the screen. But in this case, any website that's asking to send you notifications is asking to be able to send you those messages like we saw pop up on our screen, or that I demonstrated in the slides earlier. I have never once in my life allowed these notifications to go through because I have applications do it for me, but there are legitimate reasons, like if you have a Chromebook, or if you do all of your email use through the browser, you will sometimes want to be notified by Outlook.com or Gmail.com when a new email comes in. Let's say CNN.com is trying to send you notifications and you really don't care about news. Please feel free to push that block button. What that looks like now is you will see these customized behaviors. Sites that have been allowed to send notifications will be added to this section down here under allowed to send notifications. Sites that you have blocked will be here under not allowed to send notifications. So if you're getting all kinds of random messages popping up on the bottom corner of your screen, please do check your browsers and come into this notification section and take a look for sites that were allowed to send you notifications. You will be able to click on the triple dots there and remove them under the allowed to send notifications. All right, we had one more question here about how to password protect folders in Windows 11. I'm going to demonstrate on my Windows 10 computer, but the process is not different on Windows 11. The menu just looks a little different. So give me a second here while I pull up this folder. You would want to password protect a folder, I mean, for obvious reasons, like if you have sensitive information stored in there. You're going to go right-click on it, go to the Properties menu, click on Advanced, and then you're going to encrypt contents to secure data. On my computer, when I click OK, it actually doesn't ask me to set a password, which I'm assuming is a safety procedure set in place by the IT team over here. On your computers at home, you will be asked to set a password and then confirm it on that folder. And then anytime anybody goes to open that folder in the future, they'll have to type that password in to make sure that they are you, basically. And then the last question before we go to break, very late here, is how to clear personal data before donating your devices. You have signed into all of your devices, basically. You've signed into your iPhone, you've signed into your Android phone, you've signed into your iPad or your Google tablet or your Windows laptop or your Apple laptop. And anytime you've signed into those devices, you have put personal information on those devices. So you want to clear that information out before you donate those devices. I am yet again going to demonstrate on the laptop. I don't have the ability to demonstrate it on the iPhone or the iPad right now, but the process is similar. All you have to do is look for the setting. So you're going to go into the settings menu on your device. And in that settings menu, you're just going to type in the word reset. And in the case of the laptop here, or an Apple device, or an Android device, when you reset it, or when you click on reset, you will be asked to go through the process of several different things. So you want to make sure you sign out of all of your web services before you go through this process. When you go to do the reset the PC or reset the device, what it does is it does a factory reset. It basically wipes the slate clean of any data or any sign-ins that you've put on that device. And then, excuse me, and then you will be able to donate the device without having any personal information on those devices. All right. I would walk you through the steps here, but I actually want to be able to use this laptop later, so I'm going to leave it as is. At this point, it's 2:40, and I am going to take a moment to rest my voice and have a drink of water. We'll come back in, let's say, 3 minutes, everybody, so I have the opportunity to entertain any questions we have. So at it's 2:41, so 2:44, we'll come back. And I will see you at that point.
Do they say information? Probably not unless you tell them.
Yeah. Welcome back, everybody. I'm a couple minutes late. Sorry about that. We are gonna answer questions now. We received, like we said, a few of them through chat, and a couple through email. We had a couple questions about password managers. We've definitely talked about them in previous tech talks. Many of them, you have a couple that are available for free. You have a couple that are available as a subscription service. I don't want to make any serious recommendations. I do personally pay for the 1Password service, but Bitwarden is a free option, right, guys? Free with a premium option. 1Password you have to pay for from the get-go. All of these things do exactly what a password manager is set to do, which is hide your vault of passwords behind one big, long, complex password so that the only thing you have to remember is that super big, long, complex password. All right. We have a question about how to remove your info from data brokers like TruePeople, or truepeoplesearch.com. So unfortunately and very frustratingly, these data brokers don't want to make it easy for you to remove your information from them. And while you can do it, each one of them is going to have their own bespoke process, which you'll have to go to their website to go through. Sometimes they'll make it a little easier than others, but sometimes it'll, be like having to dance around under moonlight in the light of the blue harvest moon. And I'm just exaggerating, but you will have to do a little bit of research on this. There are companies that sell a service to do this, such as Norton. And I don't have any insight into how successful those services are at getting that information off of the web. So you would have to, I think, unfortunately, do a little research and a little legwork on your own and figure out with each individual data broker how to get your information off of their websites. We had another question about how to stay off of or remove personal information from targeted marketing lists from apps. So for email marketing lists, it is a legal requirement that they must give you an unsubscribe option from their list. So anybody who is looking to do legitimate business will include that unsubscribe button. Unfortunately, unsubscribing from their email list doesn't remove any information they have about you. You would have to contact the company individually to try to figure out the process for removing all of the information they have about you, if you can even do that. You can delete the apps that maybe you got added to mailing lists from to keep them from gathering more information about you. But unfortunately, as I said already, this is a little bit of a toothpaste out of the tube scenario where once the data is out there, it is out there. You do not put that toothpaste back in the tube. Oh boy, this next question is a good one. How can you tell if an email or text is legitimate? And I would say that if you have any serious doubt about an email or text being legitimate, you should treat it as if it is not and immediately delete it, or instead of replying to the email or text, go to a company's website and contact them directly about the matter at hand. Say it's Bank of America trying to contact you through email and you think, wow, this looks a little fishy. Call Bank of America's hotline or their 1-800 number directly from their website. If it is a text or an email from an individual and you think, oh, this is a little weird. They're telling me they're traveling in Great Britain right now, and I didn't think that they had plans to do that at this point. Pick up the phone and call them. Verify the information that is in the email or the text in a method that is not the way that you received that information. either by email or text. The number one way to do that is by giving the company or the person a call and talking to them. And don't do it with any of the information that is in the email or text that you just received, because that's probably someone trying to harvest your information. I wish I had better advice on how to tell if an email or text is legitimate. Oftentimes it's just a sense of it's just your spidey sense, you get a little bit of tingle and you're trying to figure out like I said, like someone saying they're traveling right now and their wallet was stolen and they really could use you wiring them some cash or something like that. Well, I just talked to them a couple weeks ago and they didn't mention they had traveling plans. Um, all right. So, last question before we wrap up here. How about if I set up a fraud alert? Oh, I see we're getting a couple more questions in here. So, I'll let Zach and Pete put those in my chat here so I can figure out what they are. How about if I set up a fraud alert instead of a freeze? So the fraud alerts that I can think of are specifically set up more with companies that you are already doing business. Like my credit card company has fraud alerts set up on my bank. My credit card company has fraud alerts on my account where, they're running a profile. This may be one of those cases where a company profiling me is at least a little bit useful. They're running a profile on the kind of purchases that I make. And they see, and this happened to me at one point, they see that someone in Georgia bought $1,500 of wigs from a shop in Great Britain. They're going to send me a fraud alert and ask me if I just made $1,500 worth of purchase from so-and-so wigs.com from a computer in Georgia. So I would suggest, I'm trying to talk my way around this because I think the only fraud alerts that I know of are specifically fraud alerts that are set up for companies that you're already doing business with. And they are very useful, but they're separate from a credit freeze. The credit freeze is designed to keep you or anyone else from opening new lines of credit, new credit cards, new loans, new, mortgages, God forbid, with your identifying information. Those credit freezes keep that stuff from ending up on your credit report. The fraud alerts, which you probably do want to turn on with your banks, with your credit card companies, with anybody that you are doing any kind of banking, you want those to be turned on. And I think most days they are set up to happen by default because banks lose so much money doing business through fraud that it's in their best interests that fraud alerts are set up. All right, so we have a question here about a lot of websites and applications are asking me to use biometric authentication instead of passwords. What do you think of that option and any downsides? It's a great question. So biometric authentication are things like, we used to use our thumbprints on phones, or some of us still do. Or in this case, phones scan our faces to unlock. That's what biometric authentication is. This is a little bit of a hot seat question because I'm not sure I know enough to sort of fill in here, but I think my gut instinct is the less information a company has about you, the better. And that kind of biometric information, your face scans, your fingerprint, that kind of stuff being out there. Yeah, are you comfortable with a company having that? It's one thing to have your password stolen and have to go in and change your password. It's another thing to have your fingerprint stolen because you can't change your fingerprint unless you're a CIA spy. No, just kidding. I mean, I think the downsides for me probably outweigh the benefits of using biometric data. The benefits are that, yeah, it's probably faster and a little bit handier for that program to just scan your face and log you right in. You don't have to, sit and type on your phone and spend all that time typing the password out. And then you don't have to get the second factor authentication. You're not waiting for the text code to come through and type it in, that kind of scanning. Yeah, I personally would not do it. I would do a little more research if you are interested in it, and see what the experts are saying. There are a lot of security experts out there that you can follow. Bruce Schneier is one of them, Schneier. He does a lot of writing about this kind of thing. Another question: what should we do about the SSID breach if it's advised yours has been compromised? In this case, we think you're talking about your Wi-Fi network. If you get this kind of notification, number one, the best bet is probably like if you have a router for your Wi-Fi that is provided by your ISP, probably the best thing to do is give them a call right away. They can almost certainly do some network resetting from the back end that will help you sort of get out of this. Without a little more information, I'm not sure I can answer completely, but you can change your Wi-Fi network name, the SSID yourself. I would change the SSID, so like SSN, Social Security numbers. All right, that's a completely separate thing, Mary. Sorry. If you are advised yours has been compromised, I think the only thing you can do is know that you are not alone. The best thing to do is have those credit freezes in place. I would be willing to bet that 95% of the people on this Zoom call today or sitting here in this room with me have had their Social Security numbers breached somewhere, sometime. It is an inevitability of having that data hosted on the internet that information is eventually going to wind up in somewhere public. Not to mention the fact that, like, for a long time, Social Security numbers, the actual number itself, like, followed a little bit of a pattern, and so they could narrow some things down about who you are by guessing, by knowing, even a little bit of the numbers, the first few numbers of your Social Security number. Yeah, take consolation in knowing that you are not alone. Get your credit freeze in place, and then there are services that do, excuse me, monitoring for that kind of service, or do a monitoring service for that kind of information, your Social Security number being used to open a new account under your name and that sort of thing. Our last question here before I wrap up and my voice totally gives out, everyone, is how do you learn how do you learn that your data is with a data broker? And again, and I'm sorry to say, excuse me, there are literally hundreds of data brokers out there, if not thousands, and your data is almost certainly available through them. Different states in the United States have different amounts of open records requirements for things like arrest records or, your change of address information has been filed with the Postal Service every time you've changed address for the last lifetime. And so that information is all publicly available. And that information is often used to verify you are who you say you are in a credit application. Did you formerly live at this place at this time? Your information is out there. I'm sorry to be so downbeat and scary at the very end of this conversation, but it's out there. The best thing you can do is be diligent and paranoid about the types of services you use online. Limit the amount of them that you make use of. Make sure your credit is frozen. And if you know that your data is available at one of the very popular data brokers, just by searching, your name on their website, People Finder or whatever, you can go on their website. They often hide it, but there are always ways for you to request that your information is removed from those websites, because and Pete and Zach can correct me if I'm wrong, but that was written into law at some point, I believe, in the last 10 years. They're shrugging their shoulders at me, but I'm pretty sure that was passed into law in the United States in the last like decade or so, that they have to provide a method for you to pull your information from them. All right, everybody. Our next tech talk is, when are we having the next tech talk, guys? That's hilarious that I don't know. In the meantime, if you have questions about what we talked about today or upcoming tech talks, you can check at our website, BucksLib. December 11th, right? That's what lived in my head. But December 11th is our next tech talk. Wednesday, December 11th at 2:00. You can, as I said, check out more about tech talks at buckslib.org. You can email us with questions at techtalks@buckslib.org. And feel free to stop by the library and talk to any of the library staff with any questions or tech help you need. All right, that's it. Thanks, everybody. We will see you again soon.